Sure. All kind of louder.
All right. So, okay, you ready to buy?
Nope.
Well, I can't do it that way, can I?
We can all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, but hang on. Let's see what we can do here to fix that problem. We're gonna have to do it a little different here. There we go. I'm gonna hold it back.
Breaking news?
Yeah, something like that, right?
Is it live?
It is.
Okay.
I'm still getting it all set up here, but we're live.
Oh. Okay.
Let's see how far back. Lisa, can you move in just a little bit toward the center? And Cammie, can you move in just a little bit toward the center?
Okay.
Trying to get that little bit of sun was causing you all to be in a shadow, but you are not now.
All set?
All right, go for it.
All right. Hi, everyone. This is Cammie Bellamy with the Star News, and I have with us today Chairwoman of the New Hanover County Board of Education, Lisa Estep, and member Nelson Beaulieu. Thank you both so much for being here today. We appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
You're welcome. We've got a bunch of questions from you about redistricting and the proposal to change Williston into potentially a magnet middle and high school. So we're going to talk a little bit about those, especially after last night's meeting. So just to start, can y'all kind of run down the decisions that were made last night with middle school redistricting?
Yeah, sure. With regards to the middle school redistricting, I felt very strongly that, given the back and forth with the Williston proposal, and there were other factors too, like Hurricane Florence. There's just been a lot of uncertainty, a lot of stress in the community. And I felt it was best that we give the community that certainty of tabling redistricting for the 1920 academic year. Of course, not applying to the votes we've already taken.
And I think, too, in terms of the time, we were creeping closer and closer to the start of the next school year. And when you're talking about middle schoolers, we've talked about this, when you get to middle school and high school, it's the students who are really invested in the school. And so when you're talking about, being in February and not knowing where you're going to be going to school in the fall, that's a tough ask. That's a tough thing to say to somebody that, and really it would be, March before you would say you're going somewhere else. By the time we would probably take that vote. So I think it was weighing on everyone's mind. So I appreciate Mr. Beaulieu making it official.
Obviously, the middle school redistricting proposal got kind of tied in with this idea that member David Wortman proposed about 6 weeks ago, possibly looking at Williston Middle School and making it into a magnet type school. And a question we got from a couple parents is, why the change at Williston? What's the idea? What's the intended outcome? If y'all could unpack that a little bit.
Well, I think again it does tie into the whole middle school redistricting question. So I don't know that we can unpack all of it because it's really tied together. But from my perspective, we want to look at all schools, all New Hanover County schools, and say, are we doing what we need to be doing here? Are we doing what's best for all of our students? But specifically with Williston, it was looking at, and again, I want to refer to and give Mr. Beaulieu credit for this. Is this an opportunity that we can take advantage of? With Williston, it has been one of our schools that has struggled in the past few years. And so when Mr. Wortman came up with this idea, again, let me reiterate the fact that we have a new board. And with this new board, this is the time I felt like to try new ideas. So with that in mind, I said, let's go ahead and propose this. Let's go ahead and see what we can do at Williston to make things better for the students there, or to make things different, to see if we can help them become more successful. So that was really the genesis of all this. Of let's see what we can do. Let's see what input we can get back. It was never meant to. I think what has been suggested is it was an effort to close Williston, and that was never ever the thought process. It was, what can we do here that was really neat and innovative and amazing for our students. So,
Yeah, and I just add that when I did go down to Williston, and I met with the faculty down there. I met with some of the staff down there, the principal, the vice principals. I was just overwhelmed by their professionalism, by the success that they have brought to that school. It's important to know that that school has raised its performance for 3 consecutive years. There's so much pride there. It's well-deserved. Those grades, I don't think, reflect anything about a school. I honestly wish they'd just go away, because I don't know a person in education who looks at a school and says, that's a failing school. And I feel like there's always this desire, I don't know, there's always this attitude that people have about governing, that it has to be from a point of crisis. And I don't feel like that's the case at all. I don't feel like that's the stance that the committee's taken, that our board takes. There are great things that governments can do at local levels, at all levels, and we thought this might be an opportunity to explore one of those, and we'll see what comes of it.
And one question related to that Williston change, obviously this year it's just 64 students under capacity, so getting pretty close. Adding 4 grades in there, make it even closer. Do you anticipate renovations, additions, if the middle high school joint proposal does move forward?
Yeah, that's certainly something that we're going to take a look at. One of the things that we hope to do in the near future is come up with a bond proposal. So that would be in conjunction with that bond proposal. So yeah, definitely. I mean, we don't. The whole point of the middle school redistricting is to try to figure out, okay, what are our needs? Where can we best meet them? And that would be part of it.
And we do hope you'd have us back for a bond proposal, just to pitch
that would be,
just to pitch it, what I mean? Just to help
Right.
us out.
Obviously, there are a lot of projects that would go into a bond, like the new Mary C. Williams and a new middle school, stuff
exactly. Like that. Pine Valley, another one, another pod school.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like College Park.
And that's another point that, I think that a lot of the focus has been right now on Williston, but I don't want to ignore the fact that, we have other needs across the system, and we're also going to be talking about those, addressing those. It's an entire system that we're talking about here, not just one school, even though that has been the focus lately.
We did get some questions about Gregory as well. That's historically been Williston's sister school, little sister, on the elementary side. Parents, especially in the Spanish and Mandarin immersion programs, are anxious what's going to happen with their students if Williston is changed. So do you have any early thoughts about that at this point in the process?
Yeah, I was just out there last week, and it's an amazing program. We were in a kindergarten classroom, and I could just make out some of the words, the Spanish words in the kindergarten classroom. And then we walked into a 3rd grade classroom, and the only, I think, phrase I could make out there was "por favor." But the teacher talking to those students and the students answering back, it was amazing the progress that you can make in 3 years. And they do the 50-50 model. So the students are taking their classes one day in Spanish, one day in English, and it's a continuation. So they don't repeat the curriculum. They move on. So it's really amazing to watch it. But we would never take away from that existing program. It's working. Like I said, they're doing amazing things. If anything, we would look for ways to enhance it. So that is our goal.
So that is remaining intact.
It is, yes.
I met with a group of concerned parents from there a few weeks ago and gave them the same message. What they're doing there is working. It's successful. It's impressive. It's something I think everybody takes a lot of pride in, and there's no reason to expect anything different moving forward.
Now, with redistricting being pushed off another year, we do still have some middle schools, most notably Noble, that are fairly crowded. I know at Noble, they're using the cafeteria as orchestra space, for instance. How are district officials kind of leveraging some of these resources we have in mobile classrooms to meet those needs in the short term before we get to redistricting?
Well, specifically at Noble, we're going to be using the space at Blair as well Noble is maxed out. That is under no uncertain circumstances, that's where we are with Noble. So we cannot add any more students. But I think they are currently working on a plan. They've got kind of a preliminary plan in place to make sure that they can make that work, where they have some overflow space at Blair that they are going to be using. Along with the mobile classrooms that are there. Mr. Anderson, our head of maintenance and operations, has this very complicated a plan in place with the mobile classrooms that we currently have. We are going to be extending the lease on some of those at our middle schools to put some, the ones that are there, we're going to continue some we will not be needing because of that Blair space that we are going to be utilizing. And then we'll be having administration go back and forth, and we're looking at how we're going to be doing the, elective time, the like the band and that sort of thing to move those students back and forth. So that's really how we're going to be managing it for this next year. And then we're going to be looking at, okay, what are we going to be doing after that? So Noble is the one that is going to be, we're going to have to be most creative. The other ones, we're going to have the mobile classrooms that we can utilize. We were hoping to have the mobile classrooms available that are currently at Rolling Grice, but those would not become available until November or December, so that really wouldn't have worked. That it wasn't going to work for Noble.
Yeah, as the chairwoman said, it's all, we were talking earlier, it's all Tetris.
Yeah,
it's all Tetris.
Trying to fit the pieces in place.
Now that said, as you said last night, Nelson, redistricting is going to happen at some point, and it's going to be painful when it does happen. And the next big step will be elementary, which I guess is the biggest part of all this. When do you anticipate that happening? How soon should parents expect that?
Depends. It depends on what we do with middle school. It depends on what happens with Williston, and then it depends on what we do. Another thing that we are proposing and that we're trying to work with our county commissioners on, who have been wonderful about having this discussion, is building a new middle school at the Sidbury Road location, which is where CTEC, our CTE high school, is going to be relocating. So CTEC right now, and again, like I said, this is like Tetris. So CTEC right now is on the North Campus of Cape Fear Community College, and it is right now, very small. We're limited in terms of size. Cape Fear's, graciously allowed us to stay there, and we've grown a little bit, but we want to grow more. So we are moving out to our Sidbury Road location in the fall, and then we hope to grow to about 400 students, which is what we are allowed to grow to because we are a cooperative innovative high school. So that is really the max of what you're allowed to do. So then CTEC will exist at that Sidbury Road location. In conjunction with CTEC, we would like to build a middle school at that same location. So there would be some shared space opportunity with CTEC, maybe some blended learning opportunities there as well. So we have been talking to the county commissioners about, going ahead and starting planning of that middle school and in advance of a bond. And kind of getting started because we really need that space. So if we do that, we bring that middle school online, then we kind of have to plug that into the equation, and then that kind of changes what and when we're going to redistrict the middle school the elementary school students, because we have that Blair space that right now we're using for Noble. So you can kind of see how complicated all this gets.
It all depends on when the other
and then what we're going to
done.
do with Williston, is it going to be still a middle school? Is it going to be a high school? So we have to take those students into consideration. So yeah, we're hoping all this will become clear. And we were talking about this last night. We do need to get this kind of formulated fairly quickly, because if we are to be redistricting elementary school students in the 2021 year, those letters go out in a year. So again, I'm not going to be telling parents at the very last minute, hey, guess what? Your elementary school has changed. We want to give them as much notice as possible. But hopefully what we are conveying to everyone is, how much we are thinking of this and how much there goes into the planning of this. It's not just a computer program that you plug all this stuff into and it spits it out and we say, okay, there's the tape, here you go, here are the letters. It's not like that at all. We really are trying to be thoughtful about this and decide, okay, how can we do this so that it is in the best interest of everyone, with the understanding that someone's going to have to move.
My first meeting, I wasn't even on the board yet, but there was a redistricting forum, and there was a young girl who stood up, and I'll never forget it. She said, "I am not a number." And that really connected with me. And I think that was it's sort of an eye-opening thing about being on the board and the difference between running for office and then trying to put policy in place in the school system. And that's definitely something that's stuck with me, that I think about a lot, that none of these kids, whether you're moving them, whether they're staying, they're not numbers. And I think that's reflected in the work. I hope that's reflected in the work we're doing. We don't take any decision lightly.
Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, if anyone is especially interested in the Williston situation, there's an exploratory committee meeting tomorrow at school board headquarters. And that information is on the board website. Yep. You right, dude?
Yep. The sun came across the table and you guys are all in the dark. So now I'm going to go over here. No, you guys don't even have to move. You're perfect. There we go. Now I can see all your faces again. Carry on.
Another thing I wanted to give y'all some space to talk about is the board's new Title IX committee. Kind of give parents an introduction to that and what you're hoping to accomplish with that.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, so the Title IX committee was born out of something that was maybe slightly less than positive, but we had an individual come forward and bring some old cases up that came through the school system. And so when we reviewed those cases, we decided that it would be a good idea to take a look at our Title IX practices throughout the school system. So we formed this committee, and Mr. Beaulieu and I are serving on that committee, and we had a kind of a preliminary meeting to decide who would serve on that committee. And I think we came up with, just off the top of our head, about 20 names of individuals that we would like to be on that committee. I think I mentioned it last night, folks from the university system, folks from the community college system, parents. I would love to get some students on there, folks from within the school system. So a really broad range of individuals, I think, that could offer a lot of input, a lot of advice. We're going to get somebody from the North Carolina School Boards Association to come down, give us a one-day training. They've offered to do that. In light of the fact that the federal guidelines are changing, they said, do you want to push back this committee? And we said, no, we don't. We want to keep going. We can always review what we are doing. We can always do more than what the federal government requires, and certainly we can always get the message out to our and we're keeping it as broad as we can. One of the questions that they asked, the School Boards Association asked, is, do you want to just do athletes? Do you want to just do students? And I don't, and I know that Mr. Beaulieu feels the same way. I want to do everybody. I want to go into the schools, and I want to talk to the students there, and see what's going on there, so we can touch as many individuals as possible.
Yeah, it's become more difficult in the last. I just read an article the other day talking about how it's just become so different in the digital age, just the last 20 years, and the different threats that our students face, the different ways in which schools have to respond. And I think it's new for everybody. The laws are still adapting to the times. They're always a little bit behind. And in a fast-paced world like the one we live in, I just felt like this committee was the right thing to do. I think it's always a good thing to ask, are we doing enough, periodically? It's really an important part, I think, of policy and of being an elected official.
And for those who might not be familiar, Title IX is the federal act that ensures equity between the sexes in education. That's most popularly thought of with regard to women having access to sports team, but it also deals with sexual assault and harassment. And this committee sounds like it's aimed at helping students better understand the protections that exist for them.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think we have to decide, are we, what sort of targeted interventions could we have in place? I was having a conversation with Judge Corpening the other day, and we were talking specifically about mental health and how do we target the intervention, and it was having to do more with security. But to me, this also fits into that as well. So I think all of our supports that we have to figure out, okay, you don't have unlimited resources. So how do you best target those supports and those safeties? So to me, this is another form of that.
Now, to that less than positive situation that led to the formation of the committee. Obviously, that individual also called on the board to perform an investigation of the situation. Would you explain to people the role of a school board when it comes to something like that, and the rules you face when it comes to being asked to perform an investigation? Is that something you're even in a position to do on these kinds of cases?
So the role, the actual role of a school board, I mean, we have several roles. One is to set policy for the school system, but in terms of our kind of judicial role, we serve in a semi-judicial or quasi-judicial capacity. So we are not a court of law, but we form. We perform one function, which is really more of an appeals function. So if an employee or a student if an employee files a grievance, or if they are suspended, if they are not recommended for renewal, if they are terminated, then we are at the end of that chain of events, so they can work their way through the system, and then we are at the end. We are the appeal, the last form of appeal before they would then be able to take that appeal outside of the system, and then file another appeal with outside agencies, whether it be Superior Court, District Court, what have you. But within the system, we are kind of at that last line of defense. Same with students. If they are long-term suspended, they have the option, and they are all options. We do not have the power to say, okay, student, you've been long-term suspended. You need to come appeal to us. We don't have the power to do that. Same with employees. They have the option to come to us. The only time when they don't have the option is if they are expelled. That is automatically appealed to the board. Again, we can't compel them to come and be there for the expulsion hearing, but we have to hold one. In all of those instances, we have to stand back as a board because we are the middle ground. We are not on the side of the system. We are not on the side of the student or employee. We have to serve in the middle, and we have to remain neutral. So a lot of times we don't know of the things that are happening. We don't know the details of the case. Until they are brought before us, and they are brought before us by those individuals. And again, it's at the end. We are at the end of the branch, and that's a very important distinction to me, and I think probably to Mr. Beaulieu as well. Where we serve. The only time I think it was brought up in the meeting last night that we have subpoena power. We can subpoena somebody if an employee files a grievance. We can subpoena. Say they file a grievance against a principal, we can subpoena the principal to come and speak. But that's a fairly limited role because of how we serve, because we are that last line of appeal. So I hope that kind of clarifies our role in that, in how we serve, and why maybe we don't get some cases. It's because the individual hasn't brought it to us. But as I said last night, I would encourage anyone who feels like they have evidence of any sort of wrongdoing, anything, bring it to the relevant authorities. Because of our limited role, that might not necessarily be us. But there are plenty of outside investigating authorities who can investigate those things, and then we, would turn over any evidence to them.
Yeah, I would just reiterate that if there were a criminal conspiracy like the one that is being alleged for our administration, I think every single member of our board would want to know about it. Yep. And if there's evidence of that, as strange as it is, because of our role as a neutral authority, the place to bring that information would be to the SBI or the FBI or the DA. And if we heard an investigation, and if we heard of this, somebody brought it forward and we conducted it or whatever, and I think that would be outside of our authority anyway. But if we did that, and they said, hey, these are the pieces of evidence that we have, I think we would all immediately turn that over to the authorities. So it's almost an unnecessary step. I encourage everybody, like I said, go to the authorities, please. I would be heartsick if what is alleged has been happening and somebody isn't held responsible.
But there are many layers too, and that's where I felt like I had to respond last night, because those allegations were really alleging that all the teachers and all the administrators in the central office, they were all involved in covering up conspiracies where there was no evidence presented. And again, if there was evidence, then present the evidence to the authorities. Please present the evidence to the authorities. We don't have access to it. But I did not feel like it was okay to allege all of that stuff and not defend all of those individuals, all of the faculty who work so hard every day, and just let that lie. So. And
I will say I was appreciative of that. My wife and kids were supposed to be at the meeting, and to hear somebody say that I would be a co-conspirator to any type of act that was so despicable and so disgusting. We love kids. That's why I say I think everybody who serves for their own reason, but everybody has one reason that they share, and that is a common love of kids and just wanting to make our school system better for them. So that was slander, and that was yes. I thought that was a really unfair characterization. You don't have to agree. I know many people don't agree with every decision that we make, but to allege that I am in any way condoning or protecting people who would commit these unspeakable, horrific acts is so beyond the pale. I would just never be involved with people like that. And I thought it was good that the public knows that the board doesn't believe that, doesn't behave that way. And no. I thought the defense was more than warranted.
Thank you both for explaining your views on that and the process that the quasi-judicial board has to deal with. We've covered a lot here today. Is there anything else you want parents to know about these issues?
Just the vote. If you wanted to go into the vote that was alleged to have taken place.
Yeah, there was some confusion about a vote. And I'm sorry, I'm never sure if I'm supposed to be looking here or looking at you.
But keep talking to Cammie.
Okay.
You're in the middle.
Yeah. So there was some confusion over a vote. There was. The Reverend Murphy brought this letter forward and asked for this for an investigation, and we get closed session. When we go into closed session, we get minutes, and the entire board has emailed those minutes and then asked to approve those minutes. So the entire board saw the minutes. Approved minutes, and the minutes do not reflect a vote. So there was no vote for an investigation. So I'm not sure where the confusion came in. There was, we prepared a written statement, a written letter to Reverend Murphy. There was a vote on that about whether we were going to prepare a written statement, and there was a vote on that, and the vote on that was reflected in the minutes. So I just wanted to clarify that. So I think there was some confusion in a couple of news stories, but there was never any vote on an investigation. We did not take a vote.
As far as reaching the decision not to conduct an investigation, was that done without a formal vote?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to add about redistricting or the Williston proposal as it stands, or this topic before we let you go?
Other than I think that they're working so hard. Again, that's another committee that, if you look at the makeup of the committee, it has grown, and they've included absolutely everyone that they can think of. They have moved from one starting point, and they have ended up at another, which I think is great based on feedback. I'm really proud of the work that they've done, and I'm really proud of David and Stephanie and how much they've given to this. It really is amazing. And again, if you look at the old board and you look at the new board and what would have been done at the old board and what is being done with the new board, I think you really find that we're really trying to move the needle, and I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of what we are accomplishing. and what we are trying to do, and we aren't done. We've got a lot to do. We've got a lot that we're trying to accomplish, and I'm excited about it. So.
Yeah, I'd like to just I did run when I ran. I said I really wanted to be transparent and communicate better. And you can do that as a board member, but I think it's been refreshing to see that spirit embraced by the board members who were there. They have been very open and forthcoming, and I think that was, you saw that with the Williston proposal. Looking at an art school and getting, frankly, a lot of negative feedback. People said, no, that's not a good match. And I'm proud that we did listen, and we said, okay, well, what might be a good match? Let's explore this a little bit. I think that's a reflection of the spirit of the board, and it's something I'm very happy to be associated with.
Well, I can't thank you all both enough for all your time today. And if readers have any additional questions for you, they can find your contact info on the board website. Correct?
Yes, they can.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time too.
Thanks.
Thank you.